Travel to Europe in 2026 isn't just book a flight and show up with a passport anymore. More of the trip is getting digitized, and that means a few new rules can hit you before you even reach the border, especially if you're connecting through the UK or flying on budget airlines inside Europe. In this video, we're going through 8 big changes you should know ahead of time: the EU's new entry and exit system, EES, the upcoming ETIAS travel authorization, the UK ETA, plus a handful of airport, luggage, and cost surprises that can mess with your schedule and your budget if you don't see them coming. Number 1. EES Border Biometrics. Number 1. EES Border Biometrics. In 2026, a lot of people are going to be surprised when their passport doesn't come back with that fresh ink stamp. Across most of the Schengen Area, Europe is switching to the EU Entry Wage Exit System, or EES. The phased rollout started on October 12, 2025, and it's expected to be fully in place by April 10, 2026, which is why 2026 is when it really becomes the new normal. Instead of relying on stamps and manual checks, the border creates a digital record of your entries and exits. What that looks like in real life is pretty straightforward. The first time you cross into a country using EES, you scan your passport, get your photo taken, and provide fingerprints. After that first enrollment, later trips are meant to be quicker because the system can match you back to your stored record. A useful detail people miss: your EES record is designed to stay valid for a few years, so you shouldn't be re-enrolling from scratch on every trip unless you change passports or your record expires. During the transition period, you might still see passport stamping in some places. Don't read too much into it either way. If you get a stamp, nice souvenir. If you don't, it doesn't mean something went wrong. The digital record is the thing that matters. The big lifestyle change is time. Even if the process only takes a couple of minutes per traveler, multiply that by a wide-body plane, then add 2 more flights arriving at the same time, and suddenly everyone is in the same slow-moving line. If you're entering the Schengen Area by rail or sea from the UK, EES checks can happen before you leave. Places like St. Pancras, Eurostar, Dover, and Eurotunnel are often mentioned. So turning up last minute is a risky move. 2 habits make this way less stressful. First, add buffer time anywhere you have a hard deadline, like a connection, a ferry boarding cutoff, or a timed attraction ticket. Second, keep your own proof of travel folder. Save boarding passes, train tickets, and hotel confirmations for a while after you get home. If a database ever gets confused about whether you exited, being able to pull up receipts instantly is a lifesaver. Number 2. ETIAS pre-approval. Once EES is working everywhere, the next gate is ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. The EU describes it as a travel authorization for visa-free visitors, kind of like the US ESTA idea, but for Europe. The current plan is for ETIAS to start operations in the last quarter of 2026, and the official fee has been set at $20 for most adult travelers. People under 18 and over 70 are expected to be exempt from paying, but still need an authorization. The easy mistake is thinking this is something you can handle at the airport. ETIAS is designed to be linked to your passport digitally, which means airlines can check it during online check-in. If your ETIAS can't be verified, you may not get a boarding pass, and nobody at the gate can override a missing authorization just because your hotel is booked. So the smarter routine is, do it early, do it calmly at home, and do it through the official EU site once it's live. Ignore ads promising instant approvals, because that's where people get overcharged or scammed. One authorization is meant to cover multiple trips. The expectation is that ETIAS will be valid for 3 years, or until your passport expires, whichever comes first. That creates one very common gotcha. If you renew your passport, you should assume you'll need a new ETIAS too, because the authorization is tied to the specific passport number. One more detail that helps people plan. ETIAS is set up for travel to 30 European countries, while EES focuses on the Schengen countries using the new entry purchase exit tracking. So depending on where you're going, the list isn't always identical. If your itinerary includes a place that's Europe but not Schengen, Double check what system applies, because you don't want to learn the difference at check-in. Number 3. UK ETA for short visits. If your Europe plan includes the United Kingdom, even just a few days in London, there's a separate rule to know: the UK Electronic Travel Authorisation, or ETA. The UK isn't in the EU or the Schengen zone, so this is its own system with its own timeline. For many visa-free travelers, including US citizens, an ETA is required for short trips. It costs $16. It's valid for multiple journeys over 2 years, or until your passport expires. And it's permission to travel, not a guarantee you'll be allowed to enter. The date that matters for 2026 is February 25th, 2026. From that point, eligible visitors without an ETA generally won't be able to board transport to the UK. In other words, the airline check-in desk becomes the gatekeeper. Applying is usually simple, but it's still a process. You'll be asked for passport details, contact details, and a photo that meets the requirements. Most people get a decision quickly, but the UK recommends applying at least 3 working days in advance because a small number of applications need extra review. Also, every traveler needs their own ETA, including children, so if you're traveling as a family, don't assume one application covers everyone. Connections through the UK are where people get caught out. If you transit and stay airside, meaning you don't go through UK passport control, you may not need an ETA in some airports, including Heathrow and Manchester, as long as you really do stay on the airside route. But the moment you have to go landside, for example, to collect bags and recheck them, or because a connection forces you through immigration, you're crossing the border and you'll need the ETA. A small practical tip: if you're booking flights with a UK stop, look carefully at whether your bags are checked through to the final destination on one ticket. If you have separate tickets, or the airline won't through-check baggage, you're more likely to be forced landside, and that can turn "I'm just transiting" into "I need an ETA." Number 4. Schengen rules people still mess up. By 2026, the Schengen map is also a little different than what many travelers remember. Romania and Bulgaria became full Schengen members, with internal land border controls lifted from January 1st, 2025. For travelers, that can make multi-country routes smoother, especially if you're mixing flights, rental cars, and rail. But even with a bigger, smoother Schengen, the basics are getting stricter and more automated. The stay limit remains 90 days within any 180-day period for visa-free visitors across the Schengen area as a whole, not per country. So doing 30 days in Spain, then 30 in Italy, then 30 in Greece is still the same total clock. EES is built to record your movements automatically, which makes the "I think I'm fine" approach a lot riskier. The other rule that causes last-minute airport drama is passport validity. For entry, your passport generally needs to be valid for at least 3 months after the date you plan to leave the EU, and it must have been issued within the last 10 years. People miss this because they check only the expiry date and forget the issue date. If your passport has extra months tacked on from an older renewal policy, those extra months can confuse airline staff and systems, so the safest mindset is count 10 years from the issue date, not the expiry date. One more reality check. Border-free travel does not always mean 0 checks. Schengen countries can temporarily reintroduce internal border control in specific situations. That can show up as spot checks on trains, at highway crossings, or around major events. It's not the same as a full immigration border, but it is enough to ruin your day if your passport is back at the hotel. If you want a calm travel routine, it's this. Count your Schengen days as soon as you start planning, and carry your passport on travel days even for short hops. And if you're doing a long trip that might go over 90 days, don't try to stretch it with wishful thinking. Plan for a proper long-stay visa through the specific country you'll be spending the most time in. Number 5. Airport security and the liquids rollback. A lot of travelers were excited when new CT scanners started appearing at European airports because the promise was simple: less unpacking, faster lines, and maybe bigger liquid allowances. Then Europe hit pause. The European Commission said that from September 3rd, 2024, airports using certain liquid screening equipment had to temporarily revert to the standard 100mm limit for individual liquid containers because of a technical issue. Why you still feel that in 2026 is inconsistency. One airport might have modern lanes where you keep electronics in your bag and the line moves quickly. Another airport, sometimes in the same country, will have staff pulling every bottle out and rechecking everything. And if your trip includes multiple flights, you can get caught on the return leg when you're tired and not paying attention. The safest works almost everywhere plan is boring, but it saves money. Pack as if 100ml is still the default for carry-on liquids. If you really want bigger bottles, buy them after security or at your destination. For anything expensive, don't gamble. Put it in checked luggage or bring a solid alternative like a shampoo bar or a stick product. One more thing people forget. If you buy liquids in duty-free and you have a connection, keep the bag sealed and keep the receipt. Different airports handle rescreening differently, and that sealed bag is often what keeps your purchase from being taken away during a transfer. Number 6. Cabin bags are still a battlefield. You'll see posts claiming Europe has banned carry-on fees or forced airlines to include a free cabin bag. The reality is more complicated. There have been serious discussions in the EU about stronger passenger rights, including proposals that a small piece of hand luggage should be free of charge. But it hasn't turned into a simple, universal rule that makes every airline change overnight. So in 2026, airlines still set their own cabin bag sizes and weights, and some enforce them hard with those metal sizer frames at the gate. Wheels count. Handles count. If it doesn't slide in easily, you pay. And that at-the-gate fee is often the most painful version of the fee. If you want to avoid the baggage trap without overthinking it, focus on the two-bag reality, a personal item, and sometimes a paid cabin bag. Many budget airlines include only a personal item in the base fare. So pick a personal item bag that's soft-sided and genuinely fits the smallest allowance on your itinerary. That one choice can save you money every single time you fly within Europe. Also, don't mix airline rules in your head. Your transatlantic airline might be relaxed, but your short hop on a budget carrier might be strict. If you're doing 3 different airlines in one trip, make a quick note in your phone with each airline's bag size and weight limits. It sounds nerdy, but it keeps you from guessing at the gate. Number 7. The new cost stack. 2 different trends are stacking extra costs on European trips: climate-related aviation rules and local tourism fees. On the aviation side, Europe is pushing the industry toward lower emissions. Refuel EU aviation requires fuel suppliers to gradually increase the share of sustainable aviation fuel at EU airports, starting at 2% in 2025 and rising over time. At the same time, the EU emissions trading system has tightened for aviation, with free allowances being phased out and moving to full auctioning by 2026. You don't have to love the policy details to feel the result. More tickets show explicit environmental line items, and the final checkout price can creep higher than people expect. Some carriers have been very direct about it. Lufthansa Group introduced an environmental cost surcharge for departures from January 1st, 2025, and it can range from a small amount up to much more depending on the route and fare. Even when it isn't labeled the same way, the direction is clear. The headline fare is less trustworthy than the total price on the final payment screen. On the local side, cities are getting more aggressive about managing crowds and paying for infrastructure. Venice has an access fee system for day trippers on certain dates, with online registration and a fee that's typically $5 if you register early and higher if you wait until the last minute. Catalonia has also been moving toward higher tourist taxes, with changes that can push the maximum daily charge higher in busy areas like Barcelona. These fees aren't meant to ruin a trip, but they do change what a cheap weekend looks like once you add everything up. The practical move isn't panic, it's planning. Assume there will be city taxes not included in your room price, assume there may be local fees you pay on arrival, and keep a missed costs cushion in your budget. It's a lot easier to enjoy a trip when you aren't doing mental math at every check-in desk. Number 8. Timed entry and app-only travel. If you like being spontaneous, 2026 is going to test that. More famous places are shifting to timed entry, and it changes how you plan a day. Athens is a clear example. Entry to the Acropolis is tied to the time slot you select, and from April 1st, 2024, access has been linked to that chosen slot. If you show up at a random time in peak season, you can end up waiting far longer than you planned, or missing out entirely. So the new routine is, if it's famous, assume it's timed. Book the slot, screenshot the QR code, and add a reminder so you don't miss your window while you're stuck in traffic or a long lunch. This also applies to a lot of popular museums and churches across Europe, where tickets sell out for prime hours, even if the building itself is still standing right in front of you. At the same time, airlines are pushing travelers into app-only habits. Ryanair is one of the loudest examples, moving to 100% digital boarding passes from November 12, 2025, with boarding passes delivered to the app after you check in online. Policies like that turn your phone into part of your travel documents. The calm way to handle it is to travel like you might lose signal. Download airline apps before you leave, save passes to your phone wallet if possible, keep screenshots that work offline, and carry a power bank and short cable somewhere you can reach quickly. It's not being obsessed with tech, it's just removing a stupid failure point at the gate. And if your trip back includes a US connection, there's one newer system worth watching. The TSA has been running a one-stop security pilot that allows eligible passengers arriving from certain foreign airports with a US connection to skip TSA rescreening, starting with select flights from London Heathrow. It's limited and depends on the route and airline, but when it applies, you clear the arrival formalities and then head straight towards your connecting gate instead of doing the usual second round of screening.